It is Monday. I want to kick off our weekly whip around by wishing everybody a very happy Halloween. Yeah, well, you know I don't mean everybody when I say everybody. Happy Halloween to all the children. Happy Halloween to all the kids out there. I hope that the baggy adults running around in costumes, making it all about themselves, do not ruin it for you kids. Hopefully. Unhappy Halloween to all the full-grown weirdos dressed as kids out there today, especially if you're still in the workplace physically and you came to work in a costume. Having gotten that out of the way, no, I'm not going to do a full take on that. I've done that for too many years. It's not changing anything, apparently. If you are an adult and you're in a costume, you're a loser. How's that? It's a kid's holiday. All right, moving on to pro football. I'll never forget one day when I was feeling really, really strongly about that. And I went hard. And I still feel really strongly about that. Not as strongly, but still strongly. But one year, I went ham on that take. And Dr. Jano says, yeah, well, we're going to go out trick-or-treating. But before we do so, and luckily, one kid is out of the house and the other kid has a baseball game tonight. And even then, I wouldn't be trick-or-treating with my senior in high school. However, we went really hard one night, and I did on the show, and I had to go over to none other than Chris Pronger's house. Pronger lived in the neighborhood. And Dr. Jano says, yeah, we're going to the Prongers. You know Pronger, Chris Pronger. Very intimidating dude, 6'5". Luckily, at his home, he was not walking around in skates because on ice skates, he was like 7 feet tall. He answers the door fully in garb, full Halloween outfit. I'm like, great. I'm going to have to drop gloves with Pronger. Hopefully, he doesn't listen to the show. Anyway, what up, CP? Hope you're well. So, moving on to pro football. Why don't we start with yesterday's best game? A battle between bitter divisional rivals. A battle for first place. In a game that literally nobody had circled on their calendars. Of course, I'm talking about the Falcons and the Panthers. Seriously, though, that turned out to be a classic. Well, a classic bleep show. Because the Falcons had this game dead to rights. Have we ever said that before about them? They had a 6-point lead with 23 seconds left. Carolina still had 62 yards to drive to potentially tie and or win it. In other words, that game was already over. Over. It's okay, Rick, don't worry about it. Usually that's a sign for the buzzer. Yeah, I don't know, boss. That's not one of my drops. Hey, there you go, Red. Red's like, I'm on my drops, not yours. Not a very good call. Anyway, the game was over, and I hate to do this to the ATL. Yeah, by the way, I like the Falcons. They're kind of interesting. In fact, they're very interesting. So I hate to do this, but holy crap, fail clowns.
Fail clowns.
I thought we'd gotten beyond that. But in Hail Mary situations, I don't know, and far be it from me to say anything about an Arthur Smith coach team. I love the guy. I really do. But in Hail Mary situations, I don't know. Maybe you want to consider covering their best player when he runs a straight line right to the end zone because you have to go 62 yards in well under a minute. Yeah, I know. Crazy idea. Unfortunately, failing to do so equals peak fail clowns. However, Atlanta fan, I actually got to see a different ending this time because in the chaos of that celebration, yes, DJ Moore ripped his helmet off. And yes, that, of course, was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Even if there was nothing unsportsmanlike about it. Listen, I can't kill this dude after he made that play. I can definitely kill what I consider a lame-ass rule, a lame-ass penalty. It was the right call, but the wrong penalty, because that shouldn't be a penalty. You find me one person on this planet who is not some old as dirt, crusty-ass owner who's got a problem with that display of emotion after a guy just made one of the greatest plays of his entire career. Not long after dropping one that looked like it might kill them. This dude just caught a literal miracle out of the sky. And it was a ball that no less an authority than Patrick Mahomes said was the best thrown ball the entire year. Mahomes? There you go, Rit. Way to go. Bravo. Golf clap, Rit. Yes, this guy was ripping off his bonnet to let everybody know who just made what appeared to be the game-winning score. It was an amazing play. Or as he called it, quote, a natural reaction, end of quote. Right. Natural. So stop legislating emotion out of one of the most emotional sports that there's ever been. Like, I get that a Moore or a vet like Moore has to know better than that. He does. I get that that guy cannot let himself get caught up in that moment. He knows that. But pretty much all of us know that that is one of the dumbest rules ever. I mean, how brutal. But of course it was no good. Of course it was that brutal. Except not nearly as brutal as the second chance that Pinheiro got to win the game in OT from only 32 yards away. And yes, he shanked the hell out of that one too. My swing looks good. It feels good. I like my chances. Hey, listen, I'm not going to kill a guy for missing a 48-yard point after, but maybe you want to hit that kick from 30 yards, 32 yards to win it. And that right there opened up the door for the Falcons to move into sole possession of first place of Bacon 45's division. So I don't want to hear any more of that fail clowns bullcrap.
Fail clown.
Because the fail clowns that we're used to never would have won that game, even if they did have some help. Wild ending. Hey, listen, a guy should be able to take off his helmet, all right? Dumb rule. He's got to know the rule, but that's a dumb rule. All right, so that probably was the game of the day, but the best individual performance yesterday may have gone down right here in SoCal, where the Niners limped into SoFi, beat up on both sides of the ball, while the Rams allegedly were rolling in fresh off that bye week. And, of course, none of that mattered at all because LA got worked in a Rams house, completely invaded once again by Niner fan, just like we knew they would. As for San Fran, I mean, they go in there without Debo. No Debo, no problem, because they had Christian McCaffrey, and he did everything. CMC ran one in for 6, caught one for 6 more, and because why the hell not, he also spun a tutty. Oh, he can throw too. Nice little dime. And that right there was the first time in 17 years. 17 years that a player threw a TD, ran for a TD, and caught a TD in the same game. That had not happened since our dude, LaDainian Tomlinson, pulled it off in 05. So, I have to throw CMC. Boy, Rit, don't drop the ball on this. Because I'm going to throw CMC a reverse LT for that performance. Man, Rit's having himself a day. Yo, man's having himself a day.
Thank you.
So you can also throw Lobster Jr. and John Lynch a reverse LT as well, because so far that deal for CMC looks like a very good call. A very good call. Like maybe even a season-saving call. So hit the best game and the best player of Week 8. Why don't we flip this thing around now and talk about some of the worst of the worst? Why don't we talk about the worst play of the week? And it came, frankly, as one of the worst plays you're ever going to see. Just as Justin Fields was starting to get a little bit better. Just as Justin Fields was starting to make a little bit of progress. Unfortunately, nobody's going to remember any of his highlights from this game. They're only going to remember that time he hurdled Micah Parsons rather than touching him down. And then Micah promptly got up and ran in for the touchdown that iced that. There was, quote, a Bears offensive player that jumped over Micah. I don't think he touched him. Right, it was the quarterback. Just jump right over him. I mean, nice vert, bro. Good vert. Nice athleticism. Next time, touch the dude down so he can't get up and house it. I mean, Bears fans just simply cannot have nice things, right? Remember last week, the hood man himself gave this dissertation on how great they were. Then they went out on Monday night in prime time with the entire nation watching and all of their peers too, and they humiliate the hood man and his quarterback on national TV. So, of course, 6 days later, they get curb stomped by the Cowboys, and all anyone is talking about is the terrible play by their quarterback. But that will happen when you make one of the dumber plays ever. Again, Fields is making progress. And as we know, he has no help up front. He's got no help on the outside. He's got no help at all, period, right? But my man, easier for me to take up for you when you help yourself and not turn that into some kind of Olympic hurdling event. Maybe not even as dumb as some of the smack post-game coming from, segue, Jaire Alexander last night. And by the way, Mafia, how we living? Aside from the fact that you couldn't cover for me and I would have had an amazing weekend. Yes, I did hit them off of the show. I don't think that's part of the podcast. You know, when James Kelly and I do Jim Rome's Big Head Bets, I hit everything that I say on the podcast, but we don't do every game on the podcast. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we skipped that one. So I hit that on my own. Bills minus 11. Anyway, Mafia, you probably didn't play the game, or maybe you did, but how we living? How we living? How's that latest victory Monday hangover? I bet pretty damn good. Pretty damn good, kind of like that Stephon Diggs, Jaire Alexander beef. These two were all over each other before the game, during the game, and then after Buffalo got done smashing the pack, Diggs put a punctuation mark on all of that talk. I don't remember who started it. I just know that I finished it. I got the win. Quote, the belief that he did.
I got the win.
I didn't anticipate that. I don't give an F who started it. I finished it. End of quote. So that's some really good stuff right there. Essentially, why is that so good? Because it's the oldest take I've ever heard. Scoreboard. Look up at it. That's still the greatest smack you could ever run. You know, it might not be the straightest fire ever, but it's still the best smack ever. Scoreboard, look up at it. And, of course, you mess around on Stephon Diggs and any of the Bills, you're going to find out. But if you're wondering what Jaire said before the game, he was also very open about that exchange and probably a little bit too open.